Have you ever been in a really high pressure moment and your brain just stops? Like during a big exam or a sudden emergency, maybe even just a heated argument, and suddenly your mind is totally blank? It is so frustrating, right? Well, it turns out that brain freeze isn't some kind of bug in your system. It's actually a deeply ingrained feature. So let's get into why your brain chooses to be fast over being smart when you panic. And that brings us to the big question, doesn't it? It seems completely backward. In a crisis, you think that logic would be your absolute superpower. So why on earth is it the very first thing that vanishes when you need it the most? This quote from a Reddit user it hits the nail on the head. It perfectly frames the entire reason for our brain's seemingly strange behavior. See, it's not trying to find the best possible outcome. It's just trying to find one where you survive. Your brain's number one job, above all else, is just to keep you alive. And in the game of survival, being fast almost always beats being smart. Okay, so to really get this, we need to understand how our brain actually makes decisions. It's not just one single process. It's kind of like you've got two different operating systems running at the same time. One is super fast and intuitive, and the other is slow and much more deliberate. Scientists often call these System 1 and System 2. System 1, that's your intuition, that fast, automatic gut feeling. It's the thing that makes you jump back from a snake on a trail without even thinking about it. Then you've got System 2, that's your deliberation. It's the slow, logical, analytical part you use to, say, solve a math problem or figure out your taxes. Both are absolutely crucial, but they operate at completely different speeds. So what happens when the pressure is on? Well, researchers have a name for it, the CD model. It stands for stress-induced deliberation to intuition, and that name perfectly describes what we all feel during panic. Our brain literally shifts power away from that slow, logical system 2 and hands the keys over to the fast, instinctive system 1. Stress is the trigger that just flips that switch. So where in the brain does this battle actually take place? Because this isn't just some abstract concept, it is a real physical tug of war happening right inside your head. Let's meet the two key players involved in what we call an emotional hijack. So inside your head, you've got the prefrontal cortex, which sits right behind your forehead. And then deeper inside the brain, you have the amygdala. Now, these two parts are usually in a constant dialogue, but when stress shows up, that nice little dialogue can turn into an all-out shouting match. And honestly, the best way to think about their jobs is with these nicknames. Your prefrontal cortex is the brain's CEO. It's in charge of all the high-level stuff: logic, planning, regulating your emotions. The amygdala, on the other hand, is the emotional sentinel. Its one and only job is to constantly scan for threats and sound the alarm, which kicks off our fight or flight response. And this is the hijack. See, the amygdala is built for one thing: speed. When it thinks it sees a threat, and it doesn't matter if it's real or imagined, it floods your system with stress hormones so incredibly fast that it basically shuts down the CEO's office. Your logical prefrontal cortex goes offline, and the fast, purely reactive sentinel takes complete control. Now, I know what you're thinking. This whole thing sounds like a major design flaw, right? Why would we have a panic button that shuts down our ability to think clearly? Well, the answer is buried deep in our evolutionary past. This isn't a bug. It's your brain's ancient survival software. I mean, why this exact wiring? Why prioritize speed over accuracy and raw emotion over careful, calm logic? The answer is actually pretty simple, because for pretty much all of human history, it was the single most effective way to stay alive. Let me paint you a picture. Imagine you're an early human and you hear a rustle in the bushes nearby. Option A, your logical CEO brain wants to stop, listen carefully, analyze the sound, and figure out what made it. By the time you conclude, oh, that's a leopard, well, you're lunch. Option B, your emotional sentinel doesn't think. It just screams, run. No analysis, just pure reaction. Now, maybe it was just the wind, but if it was a leopard, you get to live another day. Evolution. It overwhelmingly favored the runners. This quote just sums it up perfectly. In a real survival situation, a good enough decision made right now is infinitely better than a perfect decision made 5 minutes too late. Our brains are hardwired for good enough to survive, not perfectly logical. And here is the problem for us modern humans, that ancient survival software has never really gotten an update. Your amygdala cannot tell the difference between a saber-toothed tiger and a really tough meeting with your boss. So it responds to social and psychological threats with the exact same biological tools it used for physical ones: fight, flight, or freeze. So, does that mean we're just stuck with this outdated software? Not at all. Now that we understand how the hijack works, we can actually learn how to intervene, how to calm down that sentinel and get our CEO back online. So, what can you actually do, in the heat of the moment when you feel that panic rising and your rational mind just slipping away? Well, it turns out there are some really simple but incredibly powerful techniques you can use to pull yourself back from the brink. First things first, you've got to de-escalate right now. The simplest way, just take a break. Physically step away from whatever is causing the stress for 10 or 15 minutes to let those hormones calm down. Second, breathe. I mean, really breathe. Deep, slow breaths, especially with a longer exhale, that directly signals to your nervous system that the danger is gone. It's like sending a biological all clear signal that tells your amygdala to stand down. Next up, you need to ground yourself in the present moment. An overactive amygdala absolutely loves to spiral about the past or the future. To short circuit this, you can just label your feelings. Simply saying out loud, I am feeling anxious, actually forces you to use your prefrontal cortex, your CEO. Another amazing technique is to use your senses. Name 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch, 3 you can hear. Both of these methods pull your attention out of that emotional storm and plant you firmly back in the present. And finally, you can play the long game by building up your resilience over time. Think of this as strength training for your brain's CEO. Things like regular exercise, meditation, spending time in nature, connecting with people you care about, and even journaling. All of these have been scientifically shown to strengthen the parts of your brain responsible for emotional regulation. The stronger your CEO gets, the less likely it is to get hijacked in the first place. So at the end of the day, the biggest takeaway is this. Simply knowing that this tug of war is happening inside your own head is incredibly empowering. Panicking isn't a personal failing, it's a biological process. And understanding that process lets you go from being a victim of your own reactions to being a conscious manager of your mind. Awareness really is the first step to control. And that just leaves us with one final thought to chew on. Our instincts, our gut reactions, they all evolved for one purpose, physical survival. But in our modern world, which is filled with all these social and psychological challenges, are those same instincts still serving us? Are they helping or are they hindering our success and our well-being? That's definitely something worth thinking about.